Welcome to Discovering. Tonight, the first of a two-part series about a legendary buck.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak. Surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill, the eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
Along with deer hunting come deer stories. Stories of big bucks shot, monsters that got away, stories of giant bucks, legends who lurk only in the deepest, darkest swamps or some remote piece of UP wilderness where very few hunters have the will to intrude. Old granddaddies, able to outwit even the most seasoned of hunters. Ghosts offering only an occasional enticing glimpse in the preseason, able to vanish in the season of the hunt. Bucks so legendary, they've acquired names. I remember when I was just a young kid, tagging along with my dad on a deer season visit to an old canvas wall tent where a group of hunters spent their season each year. They told an intriguing tale of a wise old buck who had outsmarted them year after year. They called him Old Ironsides. And I remember one seasoned old hunter dressed in red and black wool sitting on a stump talking about the day he had his chance at Old Ironsides. He said the rack suddenly appeared to his left through the snow-covered spruces, and as it passed by, he swung his gun around behind him to an opening where he'd get a shot at the deer. The deer vanished. At the end of his hunt, he went over and found strange prints in the snow. He said the deer got down on all four knees and crept by out of sight till it was out of range, hopped up on all fours and continued on its path. In hindsight, certainly an exaggerated deer tale. But to a young soon-to-be hunter, it was as real as if I'd been sitting there myself. That scene played over and over in my head like a movie on many a snowy morning sitting on a stump. Are they all just stories? Stories that have grown just a little at a time, with each telling of the tale around some deer camp table? Or do they really exist? I like to think they do.
Rub right here, right on my trail that goes through the swamp here and onto the railroad grade. He hit this tree real good, amazingly high, all the way up to here, which is up to my shoulder.
The Legend of Thunder Canyon is a buck that I discovered in 2013. I had shot a nice buck in the mountains. And right before I shot him, I heard a buck fight break out, and it was a tremendous battle. And at the end of the battle, I heard a distinct sound of antler breaking. Well, doe come up in front of me, and shortly behind her, there was a buck with broken antlers, and I ended up getting him. He was an 8-point, and his tines were broke off, and I knew if I could find the place where they fought, I knew that I'd be in business, and circled, and sure enough, I found the spot where they fought. It was all tore up, trees broken. And lo and behold, I found that little piece of antler. Well, on my way back out that day, I found a track that was just a gigantic track. Had to be from a 250-pound animal. Hunted that area the rest of the year, never saw that deer. Went back the next year, 2014, and scouting the area, and I found a really nice shed antler. And so I knew there was a good buck that made it through, and I was excited about hunting in 2014. And we got the snowmageddon there a few days before season, and it was no go. No cars go anywhere, and I couldn't even get within miles of the hunting spot. So that year was a bust.
He knows me. He knows who I am. And he knows my little tricks. And he's still out here. It's 11/16/15, the second day of deer season. I'm up here at Ravens Point on Lookout Mountain here, the little rock fort, and I'm deer hunting.
So this is the area that I hunt. This is known as the Huron Mountains. It's an area that stretches from Marquette to L'Anse to the west, and goes from pretty much Republic to Lake Superior. It's about 1,000 square miles of primarily public land. It's big mountains. They go up to almost 2,000 feet. It's rugged and it's steep woods. It's an area with very few deer. The deer populations have just plummeted in the last few years with the severe winters. The wolves may have had something to do with it, but it's the most difficult place to hunt that I know of. Combine the terrain, the conditions with the winters and the snow, and the low deer populations. I can't think of a more difficult area to hunt. And then when you do it the way that I do, the old-fashioned way, I stalk and I track and I sneak, and when the weather isn't conducive to that, when it's not right for stalking or tracking or sneaking, I find good crossings and scrape lines and rub lines, and I'll sit there and I'll wait. It's hard work. You know, I keep track of all my hunts. I keep a journal with me, and I write down everything I see and weather conditions and everything. Last year during the firearm season, I saw an average of 2.48 deer per day, and I saw a total of 1 buck for every 48.3 hours hunted. A lot different than what you see in southern Michigan, where you can go out and see 15, 20 deer a day and 3 or 4, 5, 6 bucks a day. Up here, if you see 3 or 4 or 5, 6 bucks a year, you've had a tremendous year. The challenge is hard to describe. The reward is that when you're out here doing this kind of hunting, if you even see a single deer, if you see a button buck, if you see a doe, if you see a pine marten, or if you see even a darn squirrel, it's something to remember and something to be happy about, because the sightings of living creatures out here are so few and far between. It's the other beauty of hunting this country. I haven't seen another hunter in the woods in 3 years, and it's deep woods. Most guys don't have the time to go here, and if they did have the time, it's hard to work up the will and the guts and the determination physically to go out and do this. Mentally is a whole nother ballgame. It can be so frustrating, so disappointing. At times you just want to give up, but if you really want to get that big buck, you can't give up. You have to believe, you have to keep going.
I think it's a good place to deer hunt. There's oaks on the mountain over there, obviously. There's deer that use the mountain. And so I think I picked a good spot. I had a close encounter right before daylight. About 5 after 7, I had one come by me. I think it was a buck. It's like he knew right where I was. He followed me. He heard me, knew how to come and check me out. And he checked me out. And he got downwind of me. And it got just a little lighter. And I thought I'd sneak down that way and see what he's doing. He must have been watching me. Because as soon as I took a half a step, boom, doom, 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 he spooked. He ran away. And then he snorted at me. And it was over with that one. So hopefully they'll get that one chance this year. It ain't gonna be easy. So far I've seen 2 wolves And I've seen one deer, and that's it.
2015, I went back and hunted again, and hunted, I think it was 8 or 9 days in the season before I saw a buck. And finally on the 24th of November, I saw the giant. I saw the guy that I'd been looking for my whole life. Long story short, he come into 30 yards, and I was expecting him further, and he come out at 30, and I saw his head, and I had the gun in my hands ready to go, and I went to bring it up, and right when I did that, he looked right at me. I just put the scope on the gun, and I just had to get him in the scope, and so I thought, I'm just gonna hurry it up, and I tried to hurry it up, and when I did that, he was gone, and instinctively the finger hit the trigger, the shot went off, and he was gone. It was an ill-advised shot, and I went up there and followed it up, and I hit a tree right about where his feet were. I never got the gun all the way up, and I kicked myself. I'd worked for years, for decades, trying to get a chance at that buck of a lifetime, and I got the opportunity and I blew it, and I was just crushed. And went home that night, and it was just the most empty feeling. And
that was my chance of a lifetime. And I gotta tell you, it's a really empty feeling inside right now. I just had a chance at the biggest buck I've ever seen in the UP. 40 yards from me. Biggest buck I've seen in 30 years. And I blew it.
along the lines, as I'm hunting this guy, one day I came back to the truck and there's a note on my truck, and it said something to the effect of, looks like we're hunting that same big buck on the mountain. And the young fella wrote, I saw him 3 times, never got a shot. And he wrote, you know, it's mostly public land here, and you know, if you get him, I'd love to hear the story. And he closed it, he said, good luck to you and the big buck. And
well, I found the place to hunt actually by chance. I was looking for good snow and big hills to ski down. So I was skiing up a mountain, which I dubbed Buck Mountain, and saw just loads of old deer sign, buck sign, and thought that this was like the most I'd ever seen in my life, and that I had to come back in summer and in the fall and scope it out. So I did. I came back the next summer, and there was lots of deer sign around, and it was a heavy acorn year that year, and I could tell that was going to be on. And then later in the fall, it was on. There was just deer trails everywhere, and huge buck sign, scrapes and rubs all over the place. So I kind of started keying in on some spots, and I got to a spot I was sitting, and I sat down and was taking off my backpack, and I still had my scope covers on because it was like snowy and I didn't want to get a bunch of stuff on my lens. And so I was taking my pack off and getting my scope covers kind of getting ready to come off, and I hear this fast deer walking sound, and I look up, and there goes this massive buck with the biggest rack I've ever seen in my life. And I fumble with my scope cover and get the gun up and just kind of barely get on his butt as he moves into a big thicket. And that was what I saw of him that day. And then so later that day at like noon or so, I decided to go walk around the mountain, and basically because I wanted to go up there and eat some lunch in the sunshine. So I just kind of wasn't even hunting per se. I was going along, and it's all super rocky, and I was pulling myself up these rocks, and I hoink myself up over one and look up, and like 20 feet away from me, probably standing on this boulder again, is the hugest buck I've ever seen in my life, and he snorts and runs off. And I just kind of stood there on the rock wondering about all that. When he was looking down on me from the rock, and I was totally astounded, it looked like it was like this, but you know, it was and then I saw him again like a day or two later in a thicket, where a swamp where I don't even know what I was doing there, because I could only see like 15 or 20 feet with a scoped rifle, so it was kind of ridiculous to even be there. But I was basically like crawling along in some hemlocks, and heard some sound and stopped, and I could see some kind of body movement, and then there was this little opening about like yay big in all the branches, and I saw the rack go by. and put my gun up and basically just saw a wall of pine needles in my scope, and that was that. For that year, I didn't see him again. I felt like maybe I didn't suck too bad as a hunter because I got close to him and I saw him several times. But then it also made me feel like he was definitely better than me and always was a couple steps ahead and had the hidden trump card generally. So
here we are, November 25th, 2015. It's Wednesday, it's the day before Thanksgiving. And so you wonder, you work 20-some years to get a chance at a big buck, you get a big buck and you blow it. You wonder how long it's going to take to get another chance. Well, this time, ladies and gentlemen, it took less than 12 hours.
Went back the next day to follow up on the shot, make sure that I didn't hit him. You know, it was right before dark when I blew it. And went back and found where my shot hit, no sign of a shot. And so I decided, no sign of hit, and so I decided to follow where the deer went.
20 after 1, I'm sneaking along the base of the mountain, following the path that buck took after I shot at him yesterday. Found the easiest path back out to the road so I can get back into the new spot I built. And I'm sneaking along and I look and there he is up ahead of me. There he is. Middle of the day, 1:30. And he's faced like coming from right to left in front of me. He's about 70, 80 yards out.
Brought the gun up and looked, and geez, he brought his head up and I could see the radar turn, and I knew that it was him. And
big rack, big buck. And I debated on I was gonna wait, and then the wind puffed and blew towards him. He smelled the air and he turned around and started facing the other way.
so I'm looking, and it's real thick in front of me, and couldn't get a shot. He took a couple steps forward and I had an opening about that big at maybe 80 yards. And I thought, well, you know, you never know what those big bucks are gonna do. They could be gone in an instant. And I had that opening, and so I hold it real steady and I squeeze it off, and
Didn't really do anything. He kind of hunkered down, took 2 steps forward, and I waited and waited.
I'm thinking, did I get him? Did I get him? And next thing I know, I see his doe take off, and he takes off running after her, and I take off running after the both of them. I run about 70 yards, and as I'm running, I see a deer coming, and it's him coming quartering towards me. And
There he was. He came running through the intersection right along the trail where I was at yesterday morning. Run right through there, would damn near run me over if I'd have been sitting there.
so I get the gun up, and I try to find him in the scope, safety off, first bound, and I get him in the scope, and I'm just ready to squeeze the trigger, and he dipped off the back of the hill, and he was gone.
And he was gone. And he went down the hill and he was gone. And I went and looked and no sign of a hit. And I followed up the shot, no sign of a hit. And I missed him again. Twice in 2 days. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, the scope, apparently I didn't have the stock of the gun firmly in my shoulder. And the scope bit me. It bit me right there. So, I'm hating the scope right about it. Frustration doesn't even begin to describe how I feel. I'm back to follow up for my shot yesterday, and I didn't see this yesterday. But turns out my shot did get through. Man, this is painful. That shot is so close. I'm just glad that I didn't wound him and lose him. With no snow, it would have been very hard to track him if I'd have made a poor shot on him. And I'm really lucky that that didn't happen, because that shot it can't be more than a foot from killing that buck. This is my shot right here. That's where it hit. And it went through the backside there. And so that is really, really close. This is right about where he was standing. It looks like it was just a little bit on the low side. Incredibly frustrating. Mind-boggling heartbreaking, spirit crushing. So, the show must go on. I'll cross paths with that guy one more time. One more time I will. I'll find him.
I blew it 2 days in a row. I missed him twice, and I thought, I can't even describe what I thought. The feeling of blowing it, a chance of a lifetime, 2 days in a row. It's just devastating. Hunted the rest of the season, the rest of the gun season every day, and the muzzleloader every day, never saw him again. I was so moved by the story, and it was such a colossal, epic story. It was too much to tell my dad and my brothers, my hunting partners, in the course of 5 phone conversations. So I decided I'd write a book and share the story with them. The reason I share the story is not so much about me, but it's to encourage other hunters to get out and hunt the way that I hunt. It's the most difficult kind of hunting you're ever going to find, but it's also the most rewarding. And it's the kind of thing where even if you don't see a deer, you have a great day every day. And when you do see a deer, whether it's a doe or a spike horn or even a button buck, it's a victory. It's something to be excited and happy about, just to see anything living out in these mountains this time of year. It's just a great thrill. And you know, I thought this was one of the greatest hunting stories I ever heard of, and I thought it was a masterpiece and a classic, and I thought that the book was done, and but you know, little did I know there would be another chapter to write, and I didn't know there would be another chapter to write. I thought there'd be a chance I'd never see the guy again, and but lo and behold, we went at her again this year, and there's a little more of the story to tell.